Thank you, Max, for the introduction, and great to be here. My name is Carsten Ley from Asia PMO. I'm a consultant and project manager with background from Deloitte Consulting as project manager and in different PMO roles in Asia. And now I'm a consultant for my own company, Asia PMO, for topics like project management, HR, customer experience. I will give you an overview about that at the end. So my approach today to the procurement topic for you is about looking at supplier partnerships inside projects. So we speak about project management with third parties. If you have any comment, you can raise your comments in the comment section of the chat here, and we will answer it during the session, or also at the end we have a Q&A session. Thank you. Okay, let's go into the topic. Supplier partnership management in projects. So the first thing we will look at is how to manage an effective partnership. So I will go with you through the stages of project management with suppliers, and then I will have two business cases from my own experience as head of PMO and the project management director and project management and companies, how I dealt with suppliers and what was the most effective way. So at the end, we have two business cases there. So as you know, from your experience in projects, you can have a lot of suppliers. Yeah. I mean, I worked for Lazada before. So in e-commerce, we were doing almost everything with suppliers, right? I mean, we had, if we look here, at the left-hand side, we as Lazada, we of course owned the web page. We even had suppliers for the advertisement and marketing. But then the first big outsourcing part is when you go on the web page of Lazada is the payment suppliers. I mean, all the banks, all the payment gateways, all the wallets, they don't belong to Lazada. So there are suppliers there. Then, of course, everything, all the goods which came into to Lazada and the warehouse partly belong to Lazada, partly not, and then delivery. So just when you look in the e-commerce field, so if you have a project, and I at the moment have a project in Myanmar with one of my clients to build up an e-commerce from scratch, you have to decide from the beginning what you owe, but you will end up at least with 3, 4, 5 suppliers in a lot of projects, like we can see here. And then things get complicated, especially when also suppliers have to interact with each other and you have to manage that too, not only one-to-one supplier. So this is one example where suppliers can pop up in a retail e-commerce field, just as a start. Now, if we look at classic project management, in project management, we describe procurement management, especially under PMI, Project Management Institute, where I'm certified at, in 4 phases. We have plan the procurement, conduct the procurement, or at least manage and do the procurement, control the procurement, and of course, close the procurement. I mean, close the procurement is very important because you have the final sign-off and also the final payments for both sides, where you agree that things are really done. Now, the 4 phases, and I will have slides on that, have all parts where we have to be careful how the supplier treats us and how we treated the supplier. Because we want, this is one of my message today, we want to have long-term partnerships. We don't want to get burned by a supplier, and we don't want to burn a supplier. So it's also my message to you today in procurement, even there are short-term projects, please be respectful with your suppliers and consultants, and also the suppliers and consultants of your side. Don't see it as only as a 3 to 6 months cash cow. Really plan mid, long term, get recommendation, make the client happy. So please, so everything I will say is about a mutual relationship today. So let's go into the phases. So plan procurement. I mean, first, when you plan your projects, you have to look at your requirements and you have to decide yourself what will you do yourself and what do you outsource. Like I had the example with e-commerce. I mean, warehouse maybe you can do yourself, or it's cheaper at the beginning to outsource. So you have to look at the requirements, you have to look at the risk and the costs, and also, of course, of the timelines, and on your in-house capabilities. Don't overestimate your in-house capabilities, because that can be a very big cost driver at the end. If your in-house team is probably more expensive or needs more time than you can get from a supplier. But of course, some things you want to build up, some things you have confidentiality you don't want to give out. Yeah. Like I said, we already look at timelines, and you do probably a little bit benchmarking with your competitors, how they are doing it. So which parts you stay inside, which one go outside. This is actually that you plan the procurement. So which parts of the project you want to outsource. Like I said, if you have any questions, you can comment below. To conduct the procurement is really first the onboarding of the procurement. So planning is something internal you do yourself in the project. And then the conduct the procurement is everything you do for supplier onboarding. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a project or not. So you have requests for quotations, you have requests for proposals. You need a very good and solid evaluation process. I mean, there are also in a lot of countries legal implementation that when there's an audit, they want to see that you have a very fair evaluation, that you, like in Vietnam, that you minimum invited 3 suppliers and so on. Yeah, you will have conferences probably with suppliers, one-to-one or even all together, where they can present, and you can set it up in different rounds where you shortlist more and more, let's say from 10 to 5 to 3 and so on. And then you have also an award. And I think the award is also something crucial, because this is really the kickoff of the relationship, and it should be also something very positive. Yeah. And then the first thing which I already want to highlight from my experience, and I will speak to that about that in the business cases a little bit more, is please set up a structure between you and the supplier. I mean, I had companies where I was the project manager and I knew their project manager, but I didn't know the counterparts of my teams. And it was not really clear where to escalate and who to call at the weekend and for minor things. So at the end, it all boiled down to the project manager, but sometimes it's very inefficient. So please set up parallel structures of your teams, who will talk with whom, who will approve whom, who will meet. Yeah, and of course, meet. If possible, I think nowadays we have a lot of supplier online or in other country, but if possible, really meet in person and get a little bit of feeling for each other. So this is the part, conduct procurement. Now, control procurement is the actual management of the supplier. So you will set up a review cycle. I mean, maybe once a week you meet a supplier and you get reports from them where they are against the project plan. You also check the quality, what they do. You get feedback from customers and so on. And then in a lot of projects, normally change requests happen. Now, change requests in agile management, we say it's something good. In classic project management, we try to avoid it, but it happens. So if there are changes, you should be reasonable. And there should be very clear how changes are communicated and how they are escalated as fast as possible. And who on your side and on the supplier side, ideally together, is deciding about changes. Yeah, who is deciding if something has to be faster 2 weeks, or now we need a bigger warehouse, or now we need different products? Who will pay for that change, or who can make it happen? Yeah. So change request management is very, very important in control empowerment. And also what is very important, which you should align from the beginning, is how, when you do the sign-offs, very, very clear definition of the deliverables. I think that's sometimes a little bit of a problem in contracts or in setups, that the deliverables are not 100% clear. And then also, of course, the deliverable connected to payments. And maybe you also have this experience that a supplier said, oh, it's already finished. You said it's not finished. You are blocking the next payment. And there's a lot of discussion with which a lot of bad vibe in the project and can even come to legal problems. So the better you set up and define the sign-offs, deliverables, and payment structure, the better it will be. But this is all the start parts you have to manage. And yeah. And you should put as much as reporting responsibility to the supplier. That makes your life normally easier from our experience. So control, or what we call also manage procurement. And then very important, the last part, which normally should be positive, is like shooting a goal in football, yeah, is close to procurement. So you are dealing with the final sign-offs and the final deliverables, and ideally with the final payment. Sometimes, of course, you have a go live on IT systems and you have still 1 to 3 months where they do maintenance or something like that. So this is then the close procurement after the maintenance. It doesn't have to be on go live. What is very important is that you are very clear on the handover, because every time you make a project, so for example, we are setting up an e-commerce and it's running after 3 to 6 months, who will operationally do it in the company? So the supplier will stay or will disappear in the project. Your project team will transition in an operational team, or they will hand over. Make that very, very clear from the beginning where the project content and the outcomes of the project will go. So maybe you have to do a training part at the end of the project. And then, of course, out of the projects, you should develop recommendations and lessons learned, which sometimes people forget. But for the next projects, especially when you work with the same supplier again or different supplier, please write down the lessons learned, what you can do better. And ideally, you have at least a team celebration for you and your supplier. And if they are really, really good, you can already agree at the beginning of the procurement about bonuses. So they have a higher quality, they speed up, they are way under cost, and so on. You can put some bonus stages, which is also very motivational, of course. So this is normally what we need to close the procurement. Now I want to come to 2 business cases and the lessons learned from my own experience. So the first one is a fit out construction project. So I was in charge for a fintech company to build a new office for more than 800 staff, back office and call center staff. Yeah. So at that time we were like 400 or 500, but we were expanding very fast, and we had pressure to build this new space within 3 to 4 months. So we had the challenges where we had a very short timeline. Because it was back office and mainly call center, they wanted it cheap, but still a decent quality, which you have a lot from the bosses normally. And because partly, like me, the project management were foreigners here in Vietnam, we had some language issues there. Yeah. So what did we learn from this project? I mean, it took us in total with phases. The first ones moved in after 3 months, the last one moved in after 6 months. So the lessons learned was what I said before, really have a clear structure. So if there's a little problem, let's say with water and a gas pipe or anything you don't want to be escalated on the weekend to you as a project manager, make clear who is speaking from your team to the supplier at any time for any issues which has to be fixed on site. And then later it can be reported to the project managers, yeah? The request for quotation should not be only on price, it should be also on recommendation. I mean, a lot of procurement or purchasing departments, they always go for the cheapest, especially in fit out project where it's also about quality and about speed and about exactness of the construction. We relied a lot on recommendation from other companies, yeah? And that helped us a lot to find good suppliers, yeah? Please define the quality at the beginning. I mean, agree on some examples, how a desk should look like minimum, how the carpet should look like minimum, and so on. So please have some examples on the monitor. And if it's construction and it has to be very fast, do a daily monitoring. So one from my maintenance team in-house was on site 24/7, or at least 8 hours a day when they were constructing it, to really look what they were doing and looking them a little bit over the shoulder. And then we had change requests, and sometimes the change requests were crazy because a director suddenly wanted a bigger room, or meeting rooms were scrapped for more offices, and it was already in the middle of the project, and the supplier was not happy. And then we try to be fair. We try to make a give and take on change requests. That means sometimes they had to give us some resources for free to really, or to ramp up their team the next day to really make it happen. Then the next time we paid a little bit more for a change on that. So it's a little bit of give and take. So don't pressure them always too hard and put them down, because it really can go to the end result. What is very important was also that we have fixed stage gate timelines. Yeah, that we said, okay, this floor has to be finished on this date. This room has to be finished on this date. So it was much easier with these mini milestones to handle the project, especially when it's something where we build up. And also we had the price and payments by stages. So they also knew where to put their manpower. Yeah. And then we moved our teams in with stages. So we made time, because already after 2-3 months construction, we could move people in and try to that they have an environment which is away from the rest of the construction. Yeah. So these are our lessons learned from the fit out project. The second project I want to show you is an outsourcing project when I worked for Lazada, and I was in charge of customer experience and customer service. And we had to expand the call center and outsource part of the call center. So it was a BPO project for our next e-commerce campaign, because you know, these 11, 12, 12 campaigns, you need triple, quadruple call centers, because you wanna sell more on that day, and you get crazy amount of customers who have questions, who maybe complain, who have issues the next, even not only the day of the campaign, also the next 3 to 4 weeks of the campaign, because you also have to calculate the delivery time and the time the customer has the product and tries it. Yeah. So in this one, we also had a very short timeline to get it ramped up. We needed very high quality, because it's about dealing with the customer directly in the name of Lazada. And we needed some technical setup on their side, that they have similar systems than us and similar lines than us, telephone lines. So what were the lessons learned here? Same thing. The RFQ should be quality and recommendation. So we also got quality. So we tested the quality actually with them. So we made some test runs before, some calls. We also defined very clearly in which time they have to increase or decrease the manpower. So they told us that within 2 weeks, they can ramp up 20 agents, or within 4 weeks, they can ramp up 100 agents, because they also had to recruit and onboard. And that's, so we cannot only say, okay, we need at that and that time agents, we also have to calculate their recruiting and onboarding time, which was like 2 to 4 weeks before, to be really fair to understand their process. And we also had to calculate the turnover in, because of course, not everybody who was recruited and onboarded will probably stay, especially in the call center environment. And then very important was also that we define and calculate the KPIs. So we have to set the KPIs for call center, for example, CSAT rating, but there are also different ways how to calculate. So you have to be very, very exact on that. And then they have systems to calculate the KPIs, but you also have to calculate it with your in-house system. And actually with one supplier, we had a problem, because they calculated it differently than us, and we should have been better in the setup before. Yeah. And of course, on call center, you are very fast to give penalties in the contract and say if something goes down with customers, we will lose part of the payments. But we saw it also makes sense to put incentives. So if they have, for example, a quality higher than 80–90% of most of the agents without any complaint, and customers are very happy, you should also give them incentives. not only penalties. Yeah. And like I said before, we have to understand how they ramp up resources. So we have to ramp up resources with them gradually and also allow the resources a learning curve, because you don't learn a call center job immediately. So you need also some times where you have a good mix in the call center between junior and senior agents. So you have to keep that in mind, how they run and how to operate. So please try to understand your the operations of your supplier a little bit before you deal with them. That's the main lessons learned. Now, I will give you a quick introduction on our own Asia PMO, and then we have time for more Q&A out of the chat, and you can ask directly. So Asia PMO, we are a consulting and training company based in Vietnam and Singapore, and as PMO said on the lower button, it's Project Management Office. So we help companies to run and initiate projects, to install PMOs, action management, project management, change management. And we also support companies for experience management, customer, employee, partner experience, and agile OKR management, digital transformation. So it's from action management to projects to be faster, more agile, more customer and employee oriented on the market. And we are two partners. My name is Carsten Ley. These are some of the companies I work for and some of my clients in Europe, Vietnam and Myanmar mainly. And my partner, Bruce Butler, he's from Australia, and these are the companies he works for. So he does mainly the digital transformation part. So thank you very much for having us here. And if you have now some questions, please feel free to ask, or if you have any comments from your experience, we are happy to listen to you.